All right, it's that time again. Time for another solo overnighter in the woods. And today we're going to continue our series on how to stay warm in cold weather. Let's get to it. So here we are 1 week later. The weather is still cooler, but it's not cold. It's not ice cold. There's no snow on the ground. Everything melted from last week. We're looking at a high of maybe 45 degrees Fahrenheit. Low tonight like 28, 30 degrees. So we want to go ahead and continue the series on staying warm in cold weather. Now keep in mind, this is not Antarctica. We're not talking about going out there in subarctic temperatures. We're talking about below freezing where you could get hypothermic and you could die. So taking minimal gear, we want to go ahead and use the landscape or utilize what's on the landscape and apply it to our shelter to beef it up and stay warm, meaning off the ground, collecting that heat, trapping that heat, making that heat circulate around us and over us, just like we talked about in last week's video. If you haven't seen that video, here's the thumbnail, check it out. In that video, we went ahead and used our military poncho and combined that with a long fire and stayed warm all night. Today, I want to go ahead and utilize an emergency blanket from Arcturus. Now before we get too far down the trail, we're currently offering a holiday sale on 100 Corporals Corner big boy skillets with that removable handle on my website, corporalscorner.com. That link is located in my video description box. Check it out. Along with that, we have cup and bottle sets, we have some backpacks, hoodies, and a whole lot more. While you're there, pick up a skillet. This discounted rate will run through the first of the year. It makes an excellent Christmas gift. Along with that, grab yourself a bag and a patch. This bag is big enough to hold a 6x12 grill and a full-size spatula as well. Once again, that's corporalscorner.com, and that link is located in my video description box. Grab the skillet now, because after the first of the year, we're going to discontinue this model and make room for something else. So if you want the complete collection, grab it now at that discounted rate, corporalscorner.com. Now, putting together an emergency shelter kit is a no-brainer. You need some type of tent stakes. It can be metal or plastic. Pick the ones that you like the best, that you are comfortable with, that you've used, and you know are reliable. Minimum 5x7 emergency blanket. These ones by Arcturus have a reflective side to actually bump up the heat. Not only bump the heat up, it also reflects the light back. This is what it looks like right here on the inside of this tarp. Nice and shiny and reflective. And then you need some type of cordage to actually hold the shelter in place. Now, there's a big thing being peddled around right now about making a shelter and using cordage that you can retrieve. That way you're not cutting the cordage. We're going to talk about the reality versus the fantasy of that later on in the video, but for now, I'm going to play along too. Let's go ahead and set this up in a diamond plow configuration and use cordage that you can retrieve. Setting the shelter up in a diamond plow configuration is exactly what it sounds like. Instead of setting it up straight like this, we're going to move it to a diamond shape, which means diagonal, and set it up from there. Now, just like last week, I want this shelter as low profile as possible and as wide as possible. So think of it, the tarp that you have, the lower you go to the ground, the wider it's going to be versus the higher you go, the shelter ends have to come in closer. So I want this thing low and wide. So let's just cut it about here. We can always come back and cut it more if you need to. We talked about doing this without cutting any cordage. There's one of a million ways you can do this. I like to practice the knots that I show you over and over and over again. So I'm going to stem from a lark's head knot, which is the same thing we use for the tie outs on the corners of these tarps. Is place my knife on here and simply baton a small split. That's all I need right there. That's it. One and done. We're going to feed the cordage up in between here and tie a simple knot. That way it can't pull back on itself, and simply stake out the tarp. I'm going to try and do the best that I can to show you how to do this and keep it within the frame of the camera. All we're going to do is take our cordage. Once again, we don't want to cut it. Make a bite. That's all you're doing is you're just folding it over. Make it relatively long. Again, you're not cutting it, so you don't care. Take that bite and you're going to shove it through that grommet. Then all we're going to do is get the loop long enough to actually pull everything else, including your roll, back through that hole. Once you do that, you can go ahead and pull it tight, and it will actually lock down just like a loop does when you stake out your tarp. From this point, your short end, you want to make a overhand knot to keep this from slipping through. If you don't do that, and you pull on this, this can work its way out. So just doing a simple pretzel knot or an overhand knot, where you just go around it and back through, and it looks like a pretzel, and pulling it tight, it can't slip back through there. It has nowhere to go. So there's our lark's head knot right there. There's the overhand knot keeping it from slipping through. Short end, take your long end and then place it into that split that we made, pull it tight. This right here is that same tail that we use that overhand knot to lock off our lark's head knot. Now I'm going to take that same tail, place it in that groove, and do the exact same thing on this end over here. I'm going to go ahead and tie an overhand knot against this log, and we're going to create stopper knots on both ends, preventing it from slipping through and keeping it in place. So now you can do whatever you want with this. Just roll it back up at a certain point. Place it like this, place it down like that, place it behind the stick, whatever you want to do. Wrap it around 10 times, who cares? Now the reason why I like these stakes over the plastic ones is the fact that they're made out of metal and they're a lot longer. Best part is, on a tarp like this, they'll fit right inside that grommet. So once we locked off that end over there, I want to pull this tight towards me, start in the back, get that nice crease right there, and then we'll go ahead and stake it out. We can always come back and adjust it later. I want to go ahead and get the wings out. Start right here, just pull it tight, and then stake it out. Now, if you're interested in this knife or this axe, go to my website, corporalscorner.com, and you're going to see a couple floating tabs right there. One's going to say Corporal's axe, the other one's going to say Corporal's knife. Click them, it takes you right to the websites. This knife is the Bobcat 3rd Gen from Rebel's Den Blades, or Tony Powers. Check him out, tell him I sent you. I don't receive one dime from these knives. This strictly goes to support him, his business, and get his name out there. Makes an excellent Christmas gift. Check them out. We have the Camp Companion from Hardcore Hammers. This, I had a hand in designing. Love this thing. Once again, check out the tab that says Corporal's Axe. They're running a sale right now. Get this thing at a discounted rate, along with a sharpening kit. Check them out. Ideally, your first line of defense is always the clothing that you wear. You're trapping that warm layer or that warm pocket of air between yourself and that clothing. That's the entire point. Using a long fire or some type of fire on the outside of your shelter does several things. You're trapping that heat already from your clothing. You want that heat to pass into this shelter, onto your body, warming the exterior layers of your clothing or blankets. You also want that heat to pass over top of your shelter, warming the tarp. So you got heat, heat, and heat. It's a triple layer. And you should stay warm most of the night. As long as that fire is going, you have no problem. Now, keep in mind this is an emergency tarp, 5x7. Yes, I barely fit in here. I'm 6'1", 225. However, laying here for survival, keeping my core warm right next to the fire, utilizing what we just talked about, that triple layer, I still have room for a backpack over here, and I guarantee I'll survive the night, as long as that fire is going. So having something like this in a car kit or an emergency kit is 100% worth it in my opinion. Now, let's go ahead and talk about the reality versus fantasy of not cutting your cordage. Now, in an ideal world, yes, that makes sense. I can make whatever I want for this shelter and I can retrieve it. But if you actually stop and think and look at what I did up here, that is probably about a less than a foot, let's just say 1 foot of cordage. Now, here's my theory on that. Could I have done that, cut off 1 foot and have this in my backpack? Yes. If 1 foot of cordage is gonna make or break you, like death is imminent because you cut that cordage, it's making or breaking you, then here's my advice. Pack up, head home, reevaluate your kit and your skill set, then come back out. Because bottom line, that's the reality. If I want to do anything else with this cordage, let's say I want to make a tripod over that fire and I want to hang a bush pot. I want to make a bow drill so I can practice fire skills. I want to make a bundle bow. I want to make a fish spear or a frog gig. Anything like that requires me to do what? Cut this cordage and make those items. I want to make a buck saw. I want to make a pack frame. I want to make a firewood carrier. Anything I do now, I have to cut this regardless. So again, if 1 foot of cordage is going to make or break you, and you're done if you cut this, pack up, head home, reevaluate your kit and your skill set. Now, if your plan is to come out, do something like this, don't do anything else for the night, then yes, leave it as is. Don't cut the cordage. But if anything in your mind requires you to cut this cordage in order to make something else or do a different task, you're cutting the cordage anyways. Make sense? That's my reality versus fantasy. Far too often in this bushcraft and survival, we gravitate towards the whole fantasy aspect of it. And, you know, it's just unreal in my opinion. It's just unreal. Sit down, think things through, say, I need to do this, 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 and this. Even if you do those items first, then come back and do this, you still cut the cordage to do those items. Does that make sense? You're going to cut this regardless. Now, it's my opinion that it's more realistic to be able to reattach that cordage to your roll should you feel you need to do so. Once again, if 6 inches to a foot is going to make or break you, my humble opinion, pack up, head home, reevaluate your kit, repurpose it, get the skills, then go back out. But I'll show you a quick way how to reattach this. Let's go ahead and estimate a little over a foot here. I'm going to cut this off, and we're going to reattach it using a fisherman's knot. Taking my 2 ends, all I'm going to do, here's my short end. I'm going to place it on top and tie an overhand knot. I'm going to go away from myself, around that piece, and then back inside. There's one. Now what we're going to do is flip it around. Take that same short end, do the exact same thing again, around, over, and then back through. There's my second knot, then pull them tight. I have a ground pad. However, if I move left or right, I'm gonna be covered in mud. Now, I didn't show this last week, but you can also utilize the terrain to your disposal or the resources on that terrain. If you have pine boughs, dry dead leaves, dead grass, hay, etc., you can go ahead and get that, place it all along the inside of that, put your ground pad on top of that. That way, if you move in the night, you're not covered in mud. So let's wander around here and see what we have. Coming out of the tree line, we have all this stuff right here. It's everywhere, as far as I can see. So why not cut some of this stuff off and then utilize that as a makeshift ground pad and then place my real ground pad on top of that. Now, like I had said, I have a ground pad. So I'm not using this to get off the ground as insulation. I'm using it to sop up some of this mud. And that's all I'm using it for. So at this point, you can put as much as you want inside here. 2, 3, 4 more layers if you want. Or just do a once over like this and land that ground pad back on top. You should be able to grab this stuff and it should come out of the ground relatively easy. And then all you gotta do is cut the ends off, or if they break off like that, that's all you need to do. You just go through here and start pulling them off, or take your knife and actually go through and cut them. But you saw that came right out of the ground just like that. So just start doing that all over and get a gigantic pile and then just walk it back. Now here's the reality of doing something like this. If I were to do this for real and I didn't have a ground pad, I'd want this thing to be about 4 to 6 inches compressed. That means I would need a gigantic mound. And when my 225-pound fat ASS lays on it, it compresses down. I still have 4 to 6 inches to keep me off that ground and prevent conduction. But once again, I'm trying to prevent mud. So that should work. Now here's the brutal truth about these ground pads. Someone's gonna say, well, the gray side means it reflects. Nothing about this reflects. If they claim it does, the joke's on them. So yellow, gray, it don't matter. I like putting the yellow with the red or yellow with a different color so it contrasts. But yellow and yellow, so we'll flip it over. Won't matter to me. You can always get in here and adjust it later. Now, the last thing I want to do here is I want to measure this off. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and change, so about 7. And I'm doing this because we have dead grass right here. My fire will be right out here. I don't want something jumping on that and potentially causing a problem. So we're going to lay some logs down here and try and prevent that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and change right here. Was our fire pit from last time. We're going to just move this wood over and consume all of it. Why waste it, right? Make sure that we're one step away. Right there is good. We're not doing a long fire because we have that reflective blanket, so we're going to do just a fire pit or a fire ring. And I want that somewhat centered on my shelter. Let's move all these chunks of charcoal over here and set this thing up so we can burn the rest of this wood. So large chunks of wood are in the back. Look at the wind direction. The wind's coming right through here, feeding this fire, causing it to go upward. Once those flames are above the current fuel source, we're going to lay more. These ones are laid this way. We're going to lay them perpendicular and open them up. Yeah, this is warm right here. So the benefits of this, we had a long fire last week, and I didn't mention this because I wanted to wait till it burned down. And I try and save things for other videos. The fire was at its warmest once we consumed that log that was close enough to me. The closer log to me is how I should say it. Once we burned a hole through that, all that heat dumped over on top of me, and we had a large coal bed. So in a sense, that log was blocking the heat, or it was holding the heat for a later time. If you look at it, you know, with a positive twist on it. Right now, with nothing blocking that, 100% of that heat's hitting me right now. So the beauty of this is once it burns down, I can go ahead and take those coals and spread them out and create a long fire and then just dump wood on top of it. But I'm telling you right now, with that, it feels like my face is gonna burn off. So just something simple like this, you know, 5x7 with that reflective mylar or whatever that is, the material, that reflective material, it's doing exactly what it's supposed to do. So while we're gonna wait for that to burn down, I wanna cut this log in half here, and we'll use this on either side of the fire for our 6x12 grill. And we'll make some chow. Why? Because I'm starving. A lot of people ask me why I rotate the log like that. Think of trying to saw straight down, but then when I rotate it, I'm cutting down deeper on the opposite side as well. So at some point, I mean, is it faster? I don't know, but it's actually cutting here and cutting here at the same time. It's being fed by the oxygen this way, taking all the smoke and everything that way, keeping those coals nice and red hot. Perfect to cook on. And just like those logs, you can cut, rotate it, and just keep cutting, and it should fall right off. So here we go. Bacon cheddar sausage with extra cheese in a Corporals corner skillet. It's pretty good, but honestly, the jalapeno cheddar ones from last week were a lot better. And for those that were asking, I went to a Dollar General and actually got those. They were sitting right there. I was like, wow, okay, I'll bite, and it worked out well. Catch you all in a few. So this shelter is doing exactly what it's supposed to do. Just that fire as it is right now, I can feel it hitting my face, and it feels like 20 degrees warmer than that poncho shelter. We got that V configuration. That's not really important. I just laid those logs end to end. That way the air can still pass through them and dry them out. And you can see it's actually happening right now. It's going to create a long fire of coals that I can lay wood perpendicular to that coal bed and produce heat all night. You see the smoke's being carried away in that direction while the heat is going into the shelter, passing over my body and over top of this shelter as well. So once again, this will work. We talked about how to make this 100% retrievable. At the same time, the most important takeaway is what? If 6 inches to 1 foot of cordage to do this is going to make or break you, you might want to get some training, get some practice, re-evaluate your kit, and then come back out. But we did talk about how to rejoin this with a fisherman's knot to your existing roll in case you feel the need to add that extra foot back. Other than that, this is how my night's going to go. So if the views start taking a turn upward, we'll actually start coming out at a later time of the day, like come out 2 hours before dark, set in for the night, spend the whole night out here doing this stuff. What I found is most people start hammering the skip button at dark, so it goes unwatched. I want to give you guys what you want. So if the views increase, we're going to add more material. That's the way it's going to be, because that tells me you want to see it, and I'm going to give you exactly what you want to see. Other than that, don't forget the holiday sale on those 100 pans. We got a couple bottle sets in there, backpacks, hoodies, and a whole lot more. Grab that current model skillet. If you've been waiting for it, grab it now, because we're going to discontinue that model and make room for something else after the first of the year. On that note, let's go ahead and get out of here. With that, all the gear in my videos can be found in one spot, my website, corporalscorner.com. Now please do me that favor, hit that like and subscribe button, then ring that notification bell. Once you ring that bell, please select all notifications. As always, thank you for your comments, views, and support. Thanks for watching. Get out in the field and have some fun. I'm going to catch you next time.